10:02, we'll bring the meeting to order, and the first item is the minutes of the last meeting. Does anybody have, go ahead, Marcia.
My question on that is, should we put Mark as absent, or had he already resigned at that time?
He had already resigned at that point. That should be corrected. Yeah, and once he registers a resident of Florida, technically he was ineligible. So, unfortunately,
change the minutes then to.
Yes, I think we should change the minutes to just eliminate. I hate to say it this way, all reference. While we're speaking of that, Frank, have you heard any word on his replacement in the other slot?
I have not. I got a cryptic email. I'm trying to remember now where it was from. It almost sounded like, because I got it was from the governor's office or someone who had contact with the governor's office asking about two people. So I almost got the impression they were vetting a couple of candidates which would fill the slots, but I have not heard.
Yeah.
That was right soon after our last meeting. I have not heard anything since then.
I thought they already had two. Well, anyway, okay. Any further comments, corrections, deletions, additions?
John, that was Mark Aronowitz.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make the motion.
Second?
I'll second. It's Tim.
Marcia, you're falling behind.
I can't because I wasn't there.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Okay, we have a motion seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'm going to abstain.
Motion is carried with one abstention.
Who abstained? I'm sorry.
Marcia abstained.
Okay, I'm not sure whether there's any call for the CSCPA to weigh in at this point, but this is the first opportunity for people in the public.
Hi, John. Thank you so much.
Hi.
I have several comments from Bonnie as you're going through agenda items, but
Okay.
I'm more here in place of Bonnie. She
Right.
unfortunately was unable to make it today.
Okay, very good. Moving on to old business, we have legislation. Frank?
Hey, yes, I received an update from Leslie O'Brien, who is the Department of Consumer Protection's Legislative Director, just yesterday. So this is, well, as close as I could get to not getting something this morning. But she said that the legislation for the accountancy is part of House Bill 6100, and that Representative D'Agostino is hoping to run it in the House this week. It will then need Senate action too, and won't happen until at least next week. So it's not dead. And we're just waiting to hope to get action this week. And so everything is going forward.
Good, good. Okay. Then moving on to item number 2 of old business, revisions to regulations.
Yes, it's me again. We have actually some good news. First, the regulations do now include the changing of the section so that we can do CPA evolution. In other words, we're basically removing the 4 named sections of the exam.
Okay.
So these, the current ones, in addition to all the other everything else that's there, including the allowing continuous testing, is all part of this one package, and it has been approved by the AG. So we got that, and that was actually approved on April 28th or thereabouts. And then Jerry Padula in our office then wrapped everything together and forwarded it to the Legislative Regulations Review Committee. So it's with them, and I checked with him this morning. He said that it is on the agenda for, it looks like it's on the agenda for next month, which is scheduled for June 22nd, 2021. So hopefully we will get well, I won't jinx it, but things are moving.
I had a classmate at the academy. Always his motto was never look forward to anything and you'll never be disappointed. Pretty dreary, but it worked. Okay, moving on to, that doesn't have to go into minutes, Bob. Going on to new business, internships as part of educational requirement.
Yeah, it's thing NASBA was sending out that is part of just looking at the education requirements, among them accreditation and all, but also came the question as to whether or not internships should be included for people to get as credits towards the 120/150 hours. So we just put it on there to see what the board's feeling is.
Any comments? Yes,
Yeah.
Carla.
Yeah, as a former professor, I have lots of thoughts. First of all accredited universities that offer accounting programs, or I would say most of them that I'm familiar with, give course credit for internships. And so I mean, but it has to be approved internships. There have been some universities in the country, and well, there's one in Boston I won't name, where it requires everybody to do an internship no matter what their major, and people end up having their internship being working in a gas station. So there for example, at UConn, the internships have to be vetted and approved if they're going to have course credit assigned to it. But I think, and there has to be a limit of like 3 or at the most, I think 6 credit hours. But I think it's very valuable and appropriate to have course credit if it's properly vetted and there's proper criteria for what type of internship will receive course credit.
Any other comments? Yes, Lisa.
John, I just want to let you know that the CTCPA does support this effort.
Okay, I thought that is the effort really any different from does the effort contain the same constraints, for example, that Carla has mentioned? Do you know?
I unfortunately do not have backup information. I just, Bonnie noted that she has participated in several discussions about whether they should count towards education, and our position is that yes, they should.
Tim?
I was, just thinking that, I know with the internships that we run and we're involved with, I, argue that the educational factor from those individuals participating, being coached, more practical side of the things that we need to do and understand from an accounting perspective, and whether it's theory or whatever, it's hard to dispute that there's not an educational value to that. And so, to me, again, the correctly vetted, programs, I think it's important. It's just not any internship, but I could see that as a path as being very reasonable to move forward with.
Marcia? I'm sort of going around my table here.
All right. To me, internships are much more valuable than and other courses that they could take basket weaving and still qualify. That an internship is much better than that.
Pete?
I think internships in accounting firms and similar situations, I don't see why they wouldn't count for course credit if the university or the college is granting it. Can I
Yeah,
just,
go
why
ahead.
is this being raised? Hasn't this always been the case, I guess? Just
Yeah, I always thought, in a sense, it has been, where an internship is integrated into the academic program.
But are they asking if you have to have an internship to as part of your program?
Frank, I didn't understand it that way, but it
Yeah,
doesn't.
I
mean you have
didn't
to,
either.
it's just
Just,
you may.
yeah.
Yeah, I think, but properly embedded is part of the academic program and with some sort of limitation, you can't have 150 hours. Well, you can't anyway and still get your degree. I always thought that was always considered when it was part of the formal academic program, but maybe I misunderstood it in the past. I didn't have that opportunity, so it never came across. Well, what do we have to do anything on this, or just consider it for the future? And because this may be coming down the road, Frank.
And just trying to get the feel for the board. Yeah, I don't think there's
Yeah.
anything official needs to be done.
Yeah.
Frank, do you
Yeah,
know
I
if the
don't-
question, I'm sorry, do you know if the
Okay.
question has to do with counting towards the total hours or specifically towards the number of accounting and auditing hours that you need, or accounting
Yeah, that's a
specific
good
hours,
question.
or,
Well, I'm not sure, but does it make a difference to people? Does that make a difference? Is it, I mean, if a university approves it as part of that credit, right, I can see that's maybe one thing, but if you do an internship after you graduate, and how would you still have to get some kind of school credit for it though, right? So it would have to be still
Right.
through a university program for it to be an internship, or is it? Because that's just the credit hours, right? I mean, I don't know how else to get around that. It's a good question though.
Yeah, and it would kind of defeat the purpose of having gone to 150 hours to include pumping gas.
Yeah, and let me just say that I didn't make up the pumping gas example. That's something that actually did happen, although as far as I know, it wasn't for an accounting major. But that's why I think you have to be, and maybe that's a far out example. In most accounting majors, I don't think the school, the institution would let them get credit for pumping gas, but I just use that as a caution that we have to be a little bit careful about how we define what will constitute an appropriate internship.
Yeah. And people will get into hair splitting thoughts about, well, what about managing a shift at a fast food restaurant? That takes management skills, organization.
Right.
There's value to that for sure. But would you count it as part of an academic? So you look under this rock, Frank, you're going to find more stuff. Okay. Remote testing.
Let's just have an update. Well, as of April 13th, it's part of the NASBA legal conference. Colleen Conrad, the NASBA's executive vice president and COO, did a update at that point as to where the remote testing pilot program is. So I thought I would report on that. And it's at that point, most states had said that they would accept the scores, and no state had said no. They were still waiting for 15 other states or territories. So They count 55 states and territories as part of their group. So that means 40 states had said yes to that point. And so they were, looking to run a pilot over a 3-week period and have between 250 and 1,000 candidates. And let's see here, the only ones who would do it were those who had taken the exam before. There would be no ADA accommodations, at least in the pilot, obviously. And they were targeting the last 3 weeks of June to do this. So they are going ahead, and then once that's done, they'll obviously evaluate, but then they need to still come up with a definition of what an emergency is. That there's more conversation to go on that, at least as of mid-April. So they're still going ahead, even though people getting vaccinated and all others, they're still trying to go ahead with the remote testing just for, I guess, the next crisis. So that's kind of looking ahead.
Okay, thank you for the update. Case 2019-11.
Actually, we are not going to go ahead with this morning. So we will look at it at a future date, but I'll just leave it at that if I could.
But that was first filed in 2019 then?
Yes.
It's been around for a while.
Let me say, I've been working with Frank and Kat on that, and it's sort of a complicated case, and there's some new events or facts that have come to light. It's complicated, and we just don't even want to talk about it. We're actually in a little bit of fact-finding mode ourselves. So
Okay.
I think the best thing to do is just not talk about it further right now. It is being, I know Frank and Kat, my assistants, are being diligent. It's just complicated. It'll
Takes
take
time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that happens. I guess we move that to the July agenda then.
Right.
Okay, extension waiver request. Before we go to this, do we have? Okay, we don't have anything. Only one person specifically mentioned. So I
And
guess-
it's just him. And this time we did not receive extra requests after this one. After the agenda went out, which was good. So it's Spencer Schwartz, and he is asking for a waiver, not even an extension, I believe, for good cause. And here's his letter. My name is Spencer Schwartz, and I've been a CPA in good standing in the state of Connecticut since 1994. In most previous periods, I exceeded the required CPE requirements and carried over credits to the subsequent period. However, in 2020, due to my work time commitments related to the pandemic, I was not able to fulfill my CPA requirements. I am respectfully requesting the board consider my request to waive my CPE requirements for calendar years 2020 and 2021. I am the Chief Financial Officer for Atlas Air Worldwide, called Atlas Air, which is a $3.2 billion US cargo airline. Atlas Air is a critical participant in the US and global supply chain, providing air cargo and passenger transportation with a fleet of over 100 cargo aircraft, a cadre of highly skilled and experienced workers, including approximately 2,500 pilots, as well as numerous mechanics, engineers, dispatchers, and load masters. We are also the largest provider of cargo and passenger airlift for the U.S. Department of Defense. Further, our employees have been designated as essential workers by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The strong and stable air freight system is critically important in our country's response to the pandemic crisis. Atlas Air has been instrumental in moving necessary vaccines, other pharmaceuticals, medical supplies, perishables, life-saving medical equipment, and other essential items during the pandemic. We regularly transport goods that are critical of the daily life of Americans, such as food for grocery stores and e-commerce packages that have become all the more important during these challenging times. We have played a key role in transporting the laptops and related equipment that is critical to the world's remote working and learning environments. We also transport goods that move in critical supply chains such as automotive, telecommunications, industrial machinery, aerospace, and e-commerce retail. The continued flow of these goods is critical to keeping Americans employed and bringing Americans back to work. Given the nature of my leadership role with the company, I have not been able to attend very many CPE classes for the year ended June 2020, and I will not be able to attend very many for the year ending June 2021. My company would pay for any reinstatement fees that you deem reasonable, but I do not think I will be able to meet the CPE requirements. If the board would waive those requirements, I would like to get back in good standing as a CPA, as I have been since 1994, and would meet the CPE requirements for the year ending June 2022.
So my question is are we allowed to approve it because of, I thought we had to have sickness or, and I forgot the other one, that of why they couldn't meet their requirements.
It's medical, military, or other good cause as the board sees fit.
Got it. And could we just recommend he register? Why does he have to be licensed?
That's his request, that's all. He could just stay registered, sure.
She's made a very good case of why his company and his position are extremely important. Hasn't made any case about whether he's been able to take vacation, what kind of hours he's working. I was just kind of surprised that the critical thing was his inability to I mean, if they've been,
arguably, there are a number of companies that are very critical and have been very critical. We're not getting requests from the CFOs or controllers of those companies indicating that their workload or whatever is so challenged because of the pandemic that that they're unable to meet the requirements.
I think the thing that bothers me is that he's asking for a waiver, not some sort of deferral. I mean, to me, starting to grant waivers is a real slippery slope.
it actually seems to me that the best solution for him, which, I'm not sure whether he knew to pursue, was drop back to being registered and reestablish his licensure later if he really feels it's needed.
Right.
I'll make a motion to deny, but with a caveat that we make that recommendation to him.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and a second. Do we have any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
I
Aye. Any opposed? That's going to be a tricky one to write, Frank. Kat, I think you're going to have to write that one.
John?
That sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Can the recommendation just be repeated one more time, please?
That we recommend that he consider the option of registering his certificate instead of going for full licensure.
Which could be reestablished at an appropriate point later.
Thank you.
Wow. We're here at the last comments and concerns, so we'd better see, Lisa, if you've got what you've got from the Connecticut Society.
I more of a question and information I'm seeking. We have been receiving quite a few calls from members inquiring if there is an extension, which we have, consistently been letting everyone know that June 30th is the CPE deadline for 2021. And we're looking for a little bit of advice if someone feels that they cannot meet the requirement by June 30th because tax season was delayed to May 17th. Because today is the last meeting before the deadline period, how should they proceed if July is the next meeting? If they ask for an extension, they're already in non-compliant, with it. And I think we're looking for just some input from you folks on the best, advice that we can give as we're getting a lot of the phone calls.
How did it work last year when we went to December? Was that any issue to the Department of Consumer Protection of moving that out?
It was not. I mean, licensing might disagree, but I don't think so. I didn't hear any complaints. That was fine. If I may, and at least in every year since we've been doing this, there have been people who have asked for extensions in July, and we can just, the board that would then, if they approve it, would grant the extension retroactively, so the person would not be late. Because remember, they don't have to submit the CPEs until they apply for renewal in December, the end of the year. So they'll know then, whether they've had the extension.
And Marcia, just we have not had anyone ask us to come before you to request an extension. We're just trying to be proactive. I take that back. Yesterday was our first, someone who had requested it. But I think we're just looking to be able to be helpful to those calling, because we are getting a lot of calls. And if someone does ask, we've only had it asked one time so far, but I think we're trying to prepare if anyone else asks, but thank you, Frank. I didn't realize that they could grant that retroactively.
My thought is, we're trying to be proactive on the CPA exam and things like that. What if we were proactive on the education? What difference does it really make? That even if we said that, okay, we'll ease back into our regular schedule and extend everybody till September 30th.
I mean, I could see saying tax season's deferred a month will, be preemptively generous and defer another month. But at some point, people have adapted to meetings. They've been doing audits with a much larger portion being virtual and at distance. And it seems to me that there's been plenty of time to adapt.
Although,
Just being a hard ass this morning.
I know you are. Although, if you look at it, that some people do like in-person better. And if I count up our faces, it looks like I'm the only one that's in my office.
Oh, in my office.
Oh, okay, good. Good pictures there, people.
And Marcia, I will add to that, NASBA asked all state board of accountancies to extend the deadline, because of last year, because of, the July 15th filing deadline. And a lot of firms needed extra time to obtain the necessary equipment to be able to run effectively. With clients and firms being unsure as to how to safely about the safety of sharing documents, and those factors are not in play this year. I don't know that we would go with 3 months, but I think that, perhaps a 30-day extension, as John mentioned, would suffice for that because those items are not in play this year. But that's all.
Oh, by the way, did the SEC filings get deferred this spring?
I guess none of us know.
Tim, did the SEC filings get deferred this spring?
No.
No. I always, as an auditor, I always used to get upset when the tax people would all parade around on April 15th or whatever, knowing full bloody well that the auditors are still doing the filings. You know, poor us, poor us.
In regard to the issue before us, I think a 1 month extension sounds reasonable. Going all the way into September seems a little bit too generous and throws things off track. But I do think we ought to do something today, because as we've been saying, the CPA, Connecticut CPA has been getting these calls, and then we're going to be getting them. So we might as well make up our mind right now.
So can we make that a motion? Carla?
No, when will we extend it to July the 30th? Or wait, are there 30?
We can go all the way to the 31st on that case.
Oh yeah, that's right. I was trying to remember how many days there were in July. I'll make a motion, we extend the deadline till July the 31st of 2021.
Anybody like to second that?
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, any other comments, Lisa?
That's all, John. Thank you so much.
Okay. Then I think we can entertain a,
Frank, can I ask
motion
my
to-
question?
Oh,
Sorry,
certainly.
John. Just with Spencer Schwartz, how did he renew his license if he didn't have the CPE done by, he's asking for an extension or a waiver for June 30th.
Well, I think he's in
21, but how
I think
could
that
he?
was the point. I think I have to confirm that, but I think
Okay.
the point is he could not renew, and was just trying
Okay.
to get back in good standing. That's why you made the reference about,
Okay.
the firm or the company would pay the late fees or whatnot.
All right, got it. And I don't know. I guess my other observation is I don't know how you guys do the audits at DCP of these CPE hours, but I don't know. I feel like we're extending all of these things and people are going to be double counting hours and everything else or whatever. And I don't know how you manage
Yeah.
that, but
Yeah, it's a little tricky, but I think we will have to try to pay attention to that, because you're right. It's, thing is, I don't know. Yeah, it is true.
so I just think I think we need to recognize that if we're extending deadlines, it's going to make the whole process more complicated, I guess, with trying to audit them.
Well, understood. I'll entertain, if there's nothing else, any new business? Then we can entertain a motion to adjourn, which will make this the shortest meeting I remember.
I'll make that motion.
We have a second?
I'll second it. This is Pete.
Okay. All in favor?
Bye.
Aye.
Good. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
You.
Take care.
Have a
Bye.
great day, everybody.
Welcome back, Bob.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much.